Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about Google Forms and making a quiz. So for this video I am going to use the rubric that I created for you guys for this week's assignment. So if you want to, just kind of follow along with what I do while creating your own, and everything should be cool. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you'll want to do is go to Google Forms, of course. You can get there a couple ways. You can go ahead and click on the waffle, and you can find Forms that way, which is right here. Or you can go to the URL and type in, or I'm sorry, the Omni box, and type in the URL for Forms, which is forms.google.com. So once you get onto the Forms website, you'll see a dashboard that looks very much like this. Probably recent forms is going to be blank because you have not created any quizzes or forms or surveys yet, but we're going to take care of that real quick by creating your quiz. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and start a new form, which we'll go ahead and make that blank. And then we'll go ahead and give it a title. Since I teach personal communications, one area I cover in my class is delivery and presentation. And on here I do ask for the grade level. So with this one, this class is for. So after you create the title, the next thing you're going to want to do is turn on the quiz feature. So that way you can assign points to your questions. Really easy to do. Just click on the settings cog, go to the quizzes tab, and make this a quiz. So now that we have officially turned this bad boy into a quiz, we'll go ahead and save it. And the next thing we'll want to do is go ahead and throw some sort of theme or design in there, so that way it can give our quiz a little bit of character. So if you want to, you can just create some colors here. You can put a header in there. As you can see, they give you a bunch of different headers to choose from. So we can find one that deals with speech or personal communication. This one looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and use that, and then we'll go ahead and insert it. You can see now we have a little header with our quiz. Maybe we'll change up the color a little bit to kind of match with our header a little bit, some gray. Then, as you can see, it already changes the background for you, make it a little darker. And there we go. Now we have our theme. So now that we got our theme picked out, we'll go ahead and close this out. And the next thing we'll want to do is add some directions for our quiz. So right here where it says form description, you'll go ahead and highlight that area and type in the directions for your students. And I'll go ahead and pause the video while I type that in real quick, and then we'll go ahead and pick it up from there. So now we have our directions. One thing I glossed over real quick is make sure that in the upper left that you do title that as well, so you'll know what it is. Generally, if you type a title into the form itself, it'll automatically generate a title for you in the upper left hand, which would be the same title. So unless you want to name it something different, you can, but you certainly don't have to if the title matches what you want it to say. So pressing on, let's go ahead and talk about putting in the student's name. Now there's several ways that you can do this. Either way, what you'll want to do is make sure that it is in short answer form. What I like to do for mine is actually do one question for first name, one question for last name. So technically I would do two questions, and I'll show you how to do that. But really for this assignment, if you want to just do type your name and you can put first and last name, that's fine. I'm going to tell you the reason I like to do first and last name as two different questions is because when you go to Google Sheets to grade, enter the grades into your grade book, you can actually put the students' names in alphabetical order, and since most of those names go by their last name, if you have your own question set up with last name and you use that to organize in alphabetical order, it'll go exactly as it needs to. If you do it with first and last name on the same one, generally it's going to do your organization based on the student's first name, which would make it a little bit more difficult to enter in the grade book. You kind of have to go around back and forth. But so you do first name, make sure that is required, and then go ahead and add another question, and you can make that one last name, and then make that a required question. Make sure that's the short answer as well, which it is. And so now you're good to go. Now that student is required to enter in both their first name as well as their last name. Okay, so at this point in the rubric, we should have everything done up to question 1, student name, and then also require responses. I showed you how to do that when we created the first name and last name questions. So from there, we should be ready to go ahead and input our 5 questions. So what we need to do is make sure that we divide this quiz into sections, so that way it's just not one long page or one long sheet of just questions. So just like in a regular paper quiz where you have it divided into different sections between multiple choice, matching, stuff like that, you can do the same thing with this quiz as well. So for the purpose of this presentation, what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually just divide it up into 2 different sections. Well, technically 3 if we're counting the questions or the directions along with the first and last name. But we'll put 2 other sections in there as well. So the next section is actually going to be our knowledge-based questions, and then I'll create a 3rd section that will talk about the videos and images part of it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is add a section. So one thing you'll notice is when we added a section in here, it kind of moved some things around a little bit. So it created a new section, but it also grabbed the first and last name and moved it to that new section, which I didn't want to do. The wonderful thing about forms is that you can actually drag stuff around to put into the sections that you want. So all you'd really have to do to move it back to this first section, section 1, is actually just grab it and move it up here at the top. As you can see, it puts it back in section 1. We'll do the same thing with the last name. Same thing here. There we go. So now what we can do is go ahead and create this new section, or second section. We're actually just going to call it our knowledge section. And then we'll put a little description on here, and we'll just call it our multiple choice and matching section. So what we're ready to do now is add some questions on there. So once again, now that we're in our new section, we can go ahead and add a question to that new section. And with this one, we'll go ahead and use multiple choice. So with this one, we'll go ahead and create a question real quick, and I'll go ahead and type that question in and pause here for a second, and then we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so now we have our question typed in. With this one, I'm using this type of speech involves no manuscript or outline. So then what I'm going to go ahead and do is put a few options in here for multiple choice. So we can put extemporaneous as an option. We can go ahead and put in memorized as an option. And then let's come up with one more. Let's go ahead and put impromptu. So we have 3 options here. So this type of speech involves no manuscript or outline. The options that we gave them is extemporaneous, memorized, or impromptu. So for this one, we know that the answer is memorized. So what we need to do is go ahead and put in an answer key. So we'll go ahead and click answer key. And as you can see there, this gives us two things that we need to do. One of them is to go ahead and pick the right answer, and the other part is to go ahead and assign some points to this. So with this one, since it's 5 questions, I'll probably just make it a 10-point quiz, so each question will be worth 2 points. So we'll put some 2 points in there. We'll go ahead and click on the right answer, on which one is correct, and then we can go ahead and click done. Now, if you notice on here, if there's questions on here that have multiple answers, you can go ahead and click as many of them as you want. But in this case, there's just one, which is memorized, and then it's now ready to go. Once again, remember to make sure that the question is required, and then that's it. That's all you need to do. So from there, let's go ahead and press on to matching. So once again, we'll go ahead and add a new question, and I'll go ahead and put some matching questions on there. With this one, I call it matching. There's also basically it's drop down is what it is. And then on the drop down, what you can do is put the same answers for each question, and then duplicate it. And I'll kind of show you how to do that here in a second. So give me just a minute. I'm going to create a couple questions on here that that we can use. So give me just a second. So picking it back up from here, I went ahead and typed in a statement, and in the drop down they'll have to pick which is the right term for the definition. So in this case, I'll put, since we're only going to use 2 different definitions for the matching, we'll just go ahead and use 2 different words. So for this one, the highness or lowness of voice, we can put volume, or we can add it as tone. Now, for matching, generally when you see matching on an actual paper quiz of some kind, normally it'll have like a list of those words, and you just match them with the phrase or the definition that you need. So in this case, we can actually do the same thing. So with the drop down, we can create a new question, and then go ahead and go in and type the same responses again. But generally that happens, especially if you have something like 20 different words that you're wanting to use for a definition. The typing can be, it can take a little while to do it. So what you can do is we can actually duplicate the question. So what we'll do is go down here where it looks like copy, looks like the copy symbol, but actually it's duplicate. And when you click duplicate, what it'll do is it'll actually create, it duplicates the question and it puts it down here. So all you'll have to do then is go in and change out the definition. So with this one, I'll say how loud or soft you speak. So now we have 2 matchings that are on here that all they had to do is just click on the correct response. So like for this one, we know that this one's going to be tone. So once again, we go to answer key. We pick the one that's the correct answer. We go ahead and assign points to it. And then we click done. Once again, make sure that it's required. Then you can go down to the next question. And we know that with this one, it's going to be volume. So once again, go to answer key, click on volume, go ahead and assign it the points as well, and then click done. Oh, and don't forget to go ahead and put required on that one as well. You'll see that there's actually some 3 dots over here next to the required that give you some different options that you can go through. So based on the answers, this is where you kind of put in that thing where, based on what answer, you can move you around to different sections of the quiz. But, that's stuff that we're really not going to get into right now. It's really just kind of looking at the basics of using Google Forms. And then, of course, there's also the shuffle option order where for your different matchings, it can go ahead and every time it goes to a new question, especially if you have the same answers on there, it'll shuffle those around for you. So once again, like I said, we don't need to get too complicated with it right now. Let's just work on creating our basic quiz. So for here, we have our 3 knowledge questions. So for our last two, let's go ahead and do some application questions, maybe some recognition with images. So give me just a second, we'll get that started. Okay, so for the next section, what we're going to go ahead and do is add a video and image. So we're going to call this section the application section. So once again, we need to create a new section. And what I forgot to tell you guys before, if it's something happens where the section that you add ends up in a weird spot, it's normally because whatever question you have highlighted, that's where the new section shows up underneath. So you want to make sure that at the very bottom that you have that very last question highlighted, because that will go ahead and prompt to go ahead and create your new section. So once again, you click Add Section. This time it does it at the bottom like it should, and we're going to call this one the Application section. And for this one, we're going to go ahead and put some directions in there real quick, so give me just a second. So let's go ahead and put some questions in here now. So once again, add question. With this one, as you can see, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and add some open-ended questions. But before we put the question in there, actually I forgot to go ahead and put the video that we're going to create the question about. So what we need to go ahead and do is add the video. So along your guide here, you'll just click on where it says add video. And with this one, you can put in a URL if you want to, or do a video search on YouTube. The video that I use actually is on YouTube. So and I'll go and search for it. Okay, and there it is right there. So we'll go ahead and select it, and now it puts the video in there. So we'll go ahead and title it. And let's go ahead and move it to where it comes in before the question. Or instead of being so nice about it, we'll just go ahead and tell them to watch first. So now they'll watch the video, and after they get done watching the video, they can go ahead and answer the question. I'm going to go ahead and make this one, however, an open-ended question. I'm going to make this one a paragraph. So with this one, I'm going to put, what are the 7 deadly sins of speaking? List and define. And then they'll go ahead and be able to type in their paragraph. With this one, as you can see, since we're doing paragraph, you can add some answer feedback if you want to, but there's really nothing in there that can directly say, you know, whether or not you got the answer right or wrong without you reviewing it first. But you do need to go ahead and make sure you assign some points. With this one, it'll be worth 2 points, which I'm sure the students will love, is to write a paragraph for 2 points. And then make sure that it is required. And then for the last one, we'll create one more which will require an image, but I need to grab an image first, so give me a second, let me find an image here real quick. Okay, so for the final question, what we're going to go ahead and do is add an image. So once again, we'll add the question on here. With this one, to go ahead and put the image in, all we need to do is hit the little image button there. You can upload an image, you can get one off camera, you can find one through URL, search your photos or Google Drive. With this one, I'm going to go ahead and do a Google image search. And with this one, I'm going to type in speaker, so that we can see different speakers. Well, obviously not the type we're going to look for here. So let's try speech. Let's try how that one works. Hey, there we go. Now we got some people giving some speeches. Let's go ahead and use this one image right here. So we'll go ahead and insert that image in. And then our question could be, please, or the statement, please talk Please discuss his posture. What does he do well? And what does he need to improve? And with this one, we'll go ahead and make it a paragraph as well. And if you also want to make another open-ended question, you can make a short answer with one there too. So if you want to do something along the lines of give a definition, what's the answer to that definition without giving them some options, you could also do short answer too. But this one we'll go ahead and leave a paragraph as well. Once again, remember to assign some points. We'll give this one 2 points, and then make it required. And now we're done. Now we have our 5 questions. So from there, what we can go ahead and do is create our URL that we're going to submit to Blackboard. But before we do that, let's go ahead and look through it real quick and make sure that everything is the way it needs to be. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to do is click on Preview. And then we make sure and type in some answers there, type in some answers there, go to Next, go and click some answers there, then go ahead and click Next. We've just watched the speech. Let's go ahead and answer the questions. We are answering that one. We're looking at the pictures. We're talking about making sure that goes there. We type in an answer there, click Submit, and now everything is done. Looks good. So to get out of the preview, just go ahead and close that out and it'll go back to your regular test. So the last thing we're going to have to do is send our URL to Blackboard. So this is how we find our URL. We go ahead and click Send. We go ahead and click on the link. Let's go ahead and shorten that URL. And then go ahead and click Copy. And this link is what you'll submit to Blackboard. And now you're finally done. You have created your first quiz. Congratulations.